Welcome back to Cactus Wrestling. Today we're going to be doing a tier list. Our first tier list. Hopefully, this can be a regular little series that we do. Today, the topic of discussion is coaches. 2023 coaches over the past 10 years. And as you can see on this little spreadsheet, and if you've seen some of our past videos, we've kind of talked about teams' performances over the past decade. And now we're going to kind of take those results and rank some of the top coaches in the sport based on some of these results. So, starting at the tier list right here, I guess we'll just start in order right here. And Sean Bourmet of Michigan is first up. And Mike, why don't you take it away, Sean Bourmet?
All right. Well, for the past 5 years, he's 7 out of the past 10 years. Michigan's finished in the top 10. Their highest team score is 95th. They finished second in the country. I'd say, that's a pretty solid job there, especially if you look at the past 5 years. He very likely, Michigan's doing pretty well. They've definitely finished in the top 10 this past year. They finished second the year before that, fifth the year before that, fifth the year before that, fourth the year before that. So his past 5 seasons have been some of Michigan's best. So I think it's pretty easy to say. I'd be thinking, hey, he's probably in the A tier, considering just looking at his um, his job as a coach. I mean, he has the highest team score. He has the highest team finish in the past decade. He's only been there for the past 5 years, and he's already outperformed the other 5 years. So I'm thinking he's probably an A tier coach here. Um, he's definitely making things happen for Michigan. And
I think I agree with everything you're saying. The only reason I might put him at a B is just because he's only been there for 5 years. So
that no, that's very reasonable. It could be
he might be reaping some benefits of, I don't
oh
know,
yeah, the prior
past
coach. That yeah.
past coaches. But even that considered, I don't think Michigan was really in the picture before him. So I do attribute a lot of their success to him being in.
Well, since it's a tier list for the coach, I feel like I'm going to lean him more towards A based on what he has done in those 5 years.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yeah, if you look at the average points per year, Michigan's at like 56, which is like it's not like anything superstar, but I don't think that that's really accounting for um, only that's not accounting for his 5 years there. It's accounting for the other 5 years. And I mean, I think he's scored more than that in all 5 of his seasons there. Like he's got 80 points, 62 and a half points, 69 points, 95 points. This past season was his worst, and that's 58 and a half points, which is above average all 5 years he's there. So
Yeah.
I think there is an argument where he might be B tier, but I think A tier is probably where he should
First
be.
one is always tough, and we can probably rearrange after. We have to set the bar somewhere. And second coach on here, this one's going to be very controversial. Tom Brands. Now, some coaches are like, he needs to get out. Iowa is doing terrible. Obviously he has Gable legacy that he's up against, which doesn't help him by any means. All things considered, though, I mean, Iowa has been in the picture every year on a consistent basis. Yeah, sure, they've only had one championship, but they probably what they have the second highest total points scored in the NCAA
Yeah.
championships in the past decade. He's been there for 15 years. They've been a consistent top five team, top 10
They have
finishes
not finished
every
below the top
year.
five in the past decade. So like that's
So despite like, yeah, he's no Gable, but like, I don't know. I think he's A tier above Gourmet.
Yeah, no, I would agree. He probably is above Gourmet. I mean, I almost want to put him in the S tier because it's hard to say that Gourmet and Tom Brands are in the same tier.
Well, we
Um,
could always add a tier and we could always lower him down.
yeah, I mean, maybe we'll put him down to B tier for now.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we were already thinking possibly putting him down one notch, but yeah, no. If you're looking at it, I mean, Tom Brands has only been outscored in the past 10 championships by Kale and Tom Ryan. Like Ohio State and Penn State are the only two teams that have scored more points than Iowa in their highest ever scoring amount of points. I mean, 87.8 average points per tournament. It's no wonder that they're 10 for 10 top five finish.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's really good.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's unreal. I think that's the second most,
It
bar
is.
none. Like,
Yep.
yeah, that's.
Well, I agree. I think he's A tier despite
I think
what
he's at least
many.
A tier. There might be an argument to be made that he could be S tier.
Yeah, I mean, I know the haters are going to be like, "Oh, he's dealt the hand. He's dealt the same hand of recruits that Kale is, and Kale's able to
It's
do
true.
X, Y, and Z with them." But I mean, there's the top five team every year, so it's hard to go
Yeah.
against that. But our next one here is Brian Smith of Missouri, 24 years at the helm of Missouri. Missouri, they haven't had a championship, but this is a consistent team.
Yeah, consistency is definitely their thing. 9 out of 10 top 10 finishes is that's real impressive in the past 10 years. There's not a lot of schools that get in the top 10 period, and he's done it 9 out of the past 10 years. Like that's
But what I find interesting though, their highest finish is number four though. They can't seem to get like above
right.
that hump. Like they're consistent, like mid to high team. I mean, even some of these coaches under here, like Oklahoma State, we got Michigan, we got even Minnesota, even Edinburgh has a top three finish. Like Missouri still hasn't been able to crack that top three. That
Right.
being said, the consistency's got to play a factor. I think he's definitely ahead of Michigan, maybe not ahead of Tom Brands though.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think he probably is right there with Gourmet. I because what's it called? I mean, they only have an average of 63 points a year. Their lowest finish is 15. So I mean, past decade they've always been top 15, but I mean, 9 of those were in the top 10. Not having a higher finish than fourth does kind of set you back. Only having 63 points per season. I mean, yeah, it's hard to put you. I think B tier is probably an appropriate.
High B tier, maybe a B
Yeah,
plus.
yeah, B plus tier.
Yeah. All right. I think Kale is going to be in a tier of his own, and
Yeah,
just gonna do this
that's.
right
I don't even
now.
think you could question.
I'm I'm naming that the Kale tier.
Yeah, the Kale tier. Yeah, how do you argue against that? He's been there for 13 years. He's been top 10 finish in the past 10 years. He's won what, 8 of the past 10. His
Yeah.
average points per year is 123. I mean, the lowest finish he did have was that sixth place finish, which I mean, he I don't know what happened that year. Slipped a little bit, only scored 67 and a half points instead
If
of,
you think of that, look at that. Their average is 123. Their average is nearly Tom Brand's highest team score over the
yeah.
past 10 years.
Their average is better than every other coach on this team except for Tom Ryan, Tom Brands. That's it. Their average. Like John Smith has 119 and a half is the highest in the past 10 years. That's like hard to wrap your head around, really.
It's tough to because you look at everyone else and you're like, oh man, they stink. But I think it's just putting into perspective how effective of a coach Kale is. He's literally his
Yeah.
own tier.
Yeah, the Kale tier. I don't think anyone else can be put in the Kale tier because
Definitely not.
it's. he's in his own world. He's in his own league. Like how successful that they are. That's unreal.
All right, Brandon Eggum of Minnesota. Similar type story to Tom Brands in the sense that he is the coach that succeeded Jay Robinson, who had a historic legacy for Minnesota. They clearly just have not been the same team really ever since Jay Robinson left the helm. He's been there 7 years, average of 57 points. Their highest finish is 2, but I don't even think Brandon Megan was the head coach when they took second place.
Yeah, I don't think he was. I think
I think
it
that
was
was what 2014 or 2015 maybe.
yeah, it was 2014. Yeah, it was before he. It was still J Rob back then. So
And you think of it this way, like you have a guy, Gable Steveson, who can literally carry your team, two-time Hodge Trophy winner, and they're not even in the top 5 discussion. Like, how do you not take advantage of having a guy like that to try and recruit others into your team?
yeah,
This is a Big Ten school. I don't know. I think he's
yeah.
probably
Last year, or this past season, they took 15th. The year before that, they took 11th. They took 7th the year before that. Like they're not really doing anything that impressive. 8th the year before that. I mean, I think yeah, you're probably right putting him in the C tier
I
because
don't know if
these
we'll
other
put
guys are
anyone
clearly having a lot more success.
I don't know if we'll put anyone in the D tier. Maybe I delete that because there's just not necessarily I don't know
I mean,
because we're just talking the top schools.
these are the best coaches in the country, and we're making it sound like some of them may not be that great, but like that's not the case. Like these guys are all the superstars of the sport, as far as coaches are concerned. So even if you're put on the lower ranking of the coaches, I still think that you're still doing a hell of a job.
It's a comparison to your competition, the other coaches in the sport,
Yeah,
and this is just two guys who are just out here with our opinions. Feel free to disagree. Feel free to comment down below about how you would rank some of your favorite coaches. But Tim Flynn of Edinburgh, he was at Edinburgh for 22 years, and then he moved to West Virginia, and that's where he currently is. I mean, Edinburgh was a powerhouse program. They had a top 3 finish. Um,
yeah. And since
Within the
his
past
departure,
decade.
they've really uh, to say they shit the bed is I feel like an understatement. They've not been they've not been in the mix. Um, yeah, to say the least. I mean, when he was there, they had the third place finish, 75 and a half points. That's something to be, not nothing to turn your nose up to. Um, that that's the pinnacle of the sport. I mean, not even Missouri has finished as high as Edinburgh in the
I
past
think
decade.
I
So
think that takes a lot of credit, especially since Edinburgh hasn't even had an NCAA qualifier. I mean, I think they had one this year, but they have scored team points at the NCAA tournament in the past few years.
yeah,
Losing a guy like that and like a whole program really falling off because of a head coach leaving. I mean, I think that warrants a lot of consideration in terms of the impact a coach has on a team, especially a small school such as Edinburgh, who they don't have the means of a Penn State's or an Iowa. So I mean, I think I put him in the B tier somewhere.
um, well, I mean, because if you look at the past 5 years, they've scored 7.5 points total. But yeah, 2013 they finished 14th. Then they took 5th. Then they took 3rd. And then they started to slip. So I mean, he definitely had a good handle on that program and where they were at. I'd say based on where the program went after he left, you might. I mean, you can't really fault him for that, but so yeah, I feel like B, maybe C tier. But I mean, it's hard to put him down there when he had 2 top 5 finishes. So
Yeah, I think we'll keep him at low B right now. And then now we move into Rutgers, Scott Goodale. 15 years for Rutgers. Average points per year is only 25.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty
that's a
low.
long tenured coach. I mean, look at the list. There's only a handful of coaches that have been with their team longer than Scott Goodale at Rutgers.
And, I
Has he
mean, he's
really?
only creeped into the top 10 once, though.
Right, and that was off the heels of Sirianno and Ashnall winning
Exactly.
national championships. So for a Big Ten school, granted, Rutgers only entered the Big Ten, what? I don't know, maybe 10 years ago?
Uh,
Fairly recently.
yeah, fairly recently. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Rutgers, I don't know, maybe low C.
Uh, yeah. I mean, if we were putting someone in the D tier, I feel like he
Could
might
be
be
could be
a
D tier.
candidate for that. Just because it's only one time in the past decade you got in the top 10, so you made it there, but you haven't been able to repeat it. Your points per um, your points average points per year, and not really that. I mean, in recent years, you definitely have found some success with those guys, but overall, when we're looking at the span of a decade, yeah,
All
I
right.
think so.
This is an interesting one. John Smith, 32 years, Okie State. It's hard because we're really judging this based on like the past 10 years. But the
Yep.
legacy that this guy has, I mean, like you said before, this is the most winning team at the NCAA wrestling tournament in
Yeah, they got the
history.
most championship titles out of anyone. So, and he's been a large part of that.
And yeah, so maybe the past 2 years haven't gone Okie State's way. Maybe he's out the door in the next 5 years or so. But I mean, you can't put him in the Kale tier. I feel like
No,
he could have his own tier, but I'm willing to put him in A above Brands.
I think A tier. Yeah, he's slipped up in the past. I mean, he's only 7 out of the past 10 championships. He's been in the top 10, but I mean, he also 119 and a half. That's like the fourth or fifth most points scored at the championship. He hasn't won a title in the past decade, which does kind of does knock him a little bit. But
Yeah,
still, you look at
but only three teams have won championship in the past 10
yeah,
years.
that's exactly. So like, but he got second. So, there's not that many teams that have gotten second in the past decade. He also has 76, almost 77 points on average per year, which is that's high up there. I don't
That's
see how
number
you can put him
four.
anywhere lower than the A tier. Like even with him slipping up in recent years, I think A tier is where he should be.
I
Because
agree.
you can't put him in the Kale tier. Kale's in the Kale tier, and
Okay. Rob Cole. So we didn't put Mike Gray because he's only been with Cornell for 3 years, but Rob Cole was at Cornell for 28 years. And just a little
wild.
caveat on these numbers, Cornell did not participate in the 2021 NCAA tournament. So this is an average over the 10 years, 55 points. But if we switch this and do it over 9 years, they go up to 61 points,
Right.
which is really good. The top 10 finishes nine in the
But
past
I mean,
10
I would argue
years.
they probably would have been in the top 10 had they competed, but they didn't compete because the Ivy League didn't compete that year.
Right.
Um, what the crazy thing is, you look at highest finish ever, three highest team scores, 76 and a half. Rob Cole wasn't even the coach for those. Like Cornell's most successful year ever is this past year, and Cole was not the coach. I mean, granted, he did play a role in recruiting the guys that clearly made this happen. But the like Mike Gray is the coach that kind of led Cornell to those I'd say record-setting years in the past decade. He outdid his predecessor, but still, I think you're looking at Rob Cole. He's I'd be leaning A tier, possibly B tier, but 9 out of 10 championships, probably going to be 10 out of 10 championships. Granted, you only 61 average points per year, but like I find it hard to put him in the B tier when you basically are going to be 10 out of 10. There's the only other teams with 10 out of 10 are Iowa and Penn State. Like,
No, this is Cornell's a perennial top 10 team, and it's because of the legacy that Rob Cole has brought to
yeah,
Cornell
and Mike
wrestling.
Gray's doing a great job over there, clearly with outdoing Rob Cole this past year.
I mean, yeah, he's reaping the benefits as a head coach, but Rob Cole, think about it, like he probably recruited Yanni
Yeah, and Vito
and
and
Vito
Ramirez and yeah,
and a lot of
and
those
then
guys.
Foca. So, uh, but still, I mean, that yeah,
And you think about
yeah.
the top guys that were going to go to Cornell, but switched to Stanford because now Rob Cole's the coach of Stanford. So I wouldn't be surprised. Well, I mean, this list could change in
It
5 years depending on how well
Yeah,
Stanford
exactly. It'll
performs.
be interesting to see if Stanford becomes a force or if Cornell starts to slip at all. Um, I'm not saying that either of those things are destined to be, but potentially.
Okay, moving along. Next one we have up is Oklahoma head coach Lou Rosselli, uh, who just resigned actually. So he was
Yes.
there for 8 years, and his average team point was 20. Yeesh.
Yeah, I'd say this guy probably in the D tier. He's only made the top 10 once. Average team score is one of the lowest, if not the no, it is the lowest out of all of these coaches. I don't see how 45 points. I think that's also the lowest. He's
Yeah,
he's yeah, definitely.
this is a school where I mean, you should have an easier time recruiting, getting some top talent in a wrestling rich state. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I can't see Oklahoma being and the funny thing is there's Oklahoma's had some national champions. Like they had two or three in the past decade. So like
yep,
surprised that they didn't have better teams overall.
right. Okay, next up we have Mark Manning of Nebraska.
That's a he's another guy that's fairly consistent program. 7 out of the past 10 years, 50 points scored. Highest team score was only 59 and a half, though. Like, look similar to Missouri, very consistent, but
Yep.
consistent in the 5 to 10 range more than being in the top. Like, they're never really in the top four, really.
No, I think they're just he's a lower tiered Missouri.
Yeah, he's a lower tiered Missouri. I think that's. Did we put Missouri in the B tier?
We did high B, then we put Michigan, maybe right here in front of Tim Flynn. Well, maybe Tim Flynn. I mean, he's got some top five finishes.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, Nebraska. They got eighth, they got fifth, um, they got 12th,
I mean, he's been
you
there
know,
22 years. I mean,
they got 10th, they got ninth,
highest finish. They're
eighth,
top five. They haven't got higher than top five.
nine. Like they consistently get like right around nine. 11, 13. Like I'd almost say put him in the C tier. Like I know he's been there forever and he's 50 points, but like
I don't know. I mean, you think of the top talent that's come from there though. Jordan Burroughs,
yeah,
TJ
I mean, yeah,
Dudley,
Labriola, you got Lovett, their most
and
recent guys, but
and yeah,
like
these are just top
Chad
10.
Red, but like at the same time, I, as far as comparison to these other coaches, like the other ones that were putting in that same tier, I feel like they had more success in the past 10 years than he has, which is why I'm almost thinking of bumping him down, but I don't know.
I don't think he quite deserves a C, but he's
Yeah,
definitely a B minus compared to B plus for Missouri.
right. Yeah. I, that's why it's hard to put Missouri and Nebraska in the same tier because They're not.
Well, that's why you have
Missouri.
high tier and low tier.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, I
Or
could put B plus and add a B minus if we want to be technical, but I don't know. It's tough. It's tough.
I,
Well, this next one, this one you this is a guy you know better than anyone else. Take it away,
yeah, that's
Mike.
my old coach there, Patty Papalizio. Um,
At
I mean,
Binghamton,
he's done
not
wonders for NC State. I mean, before he got there, they were basically a no name program. I mean, I witnessed it firsthand when I was at Binghamton. By my senior year, we went from never having like a top 20 finish to finishing 14th in the country when I was a senior. So like he knows what he's doing. He knows how to get success. He knows how to get the program um, right there in the mix. I mean, his first few years there, like they were finishing in what was it? I mean, the first year he was there, he was gifted a program of nothing, and they obviously didn't do anything. But then the following year, he top 20 finish, top 16 finish. You know, he improving upon, improving upon. I'd say he worked his way to 11th, 17th. I mean, the past 5 years has been kind of where he's really shined. They finished fifth, then they dropped to 17th, back up to sixth, um, 10th, 10th. I mean, I'd say he's a solid, probably B tier. He's definitely not A tier because he's not consistently getting in the top five. Um, you know, he's I'd say he's definitely ahead of Manning because no, nah,
I would say so. I mean, I
I don't think
think
he's ahead of Manning. I think he's like right there with Manning. Um, which I mean, this even lends more to the argument where I would say that Brian Smith of Missouri shouldn't be in the same tier as these guys. Like,
yeah,
if
you think he's
anything, maybe
okay?
bump him to the A tier because he's clearly had more success and more consistency than the rest of the guys in that tier. Um,
I mean, I
I mean,
know NC State, they've had consistently top five recruiting classes over the past 5 years. He
yeah,
was able to take Binghamton to a top 15 finish. He's had
yeah,
multiple NCAA championships between Gwiz and Machiavello. The Hiley brothers have been in the
yeah.
finals.
Tariq
Um,
Wilson tearing up that tournament that one year.
I think developmentally, he takes guys that are on no one's radar, like a Kevin Jack or a Tariq Wilson, and makes All Americans out of them. And you saw it at
Yeah, he
Binghamton even.
it's
Um,
yeah, he does a hell of a job turning exactly non stellar recruits into real competitors.
it's hard to compare him to some guys who have just the legacy, like 30 years experience, and that's maybe why they're A tier, and maybe that's
Yeah,
why he's B because he just doesn't have enough years under his belt. But I
right.
think by the time Pop gets to John Smith's level of coaching tenure, he's A tier if he can
Yeah,
keeps up what he's doing.
yeah. If he keeps up with if the consistency is key. I mean, 41 points a year on average is really on the lower end, which is why you can't really put him in
Yeah,
the A
but those
tier.
first few years were just building the program.
Yeah, exactly.
He's
It is
given
basically
nothing.
getting a brand new program starting from scratch, which definitely lowers the average. But hey,
So if
in
you do
five
that over
years, do it
seven
again.
years, that's 58. That
That's actually like one of the best.
right. So maybe he's higher.
uh,
Maybe he's closer up here.
I mean, 80 is the highest points finished. Fifth is the. I'd still say he's B tier. Like I don't think the numbers are not there with him yet. I think give him a few more years, he'll probably work his way into the A tier. But for now, I think B tier trending upward.
Yeah. Well, how about his ACC rival Tony Roby? And this one's gonna be tough because he's only been there for 4 years. But Virginia Tech, I mean, they've been a powerhouse over the past few years. Um, 8 finishes in the top 10 over
Yeah.
the past 10 years. 82
But
points is their
but
highest finish.
two of the finishes that were not in the top 10 were Roby's.
Interesting.
Those were, I think, his first 2 years there.
So, obviously he's taking over a program. And they have a good rivalry with NC State, and they kind of go back and forth between the top team in that conference. They edged them out at this 2023 NCAA tournament by 1 point. But 4 years, it's really tough to judge. It's kind of like Sean Bourmet at Michigan. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe we put him in low B tier.
Yeah, that's probably accurate because I mean he finished ahead of NC State this past year. He finished ahead of NC State the year before. NC State finished ahead of them the year before that, and then I think the COVID year was his first year there. So that one really doesn't hold a lot of weight.
Right.
So I'd say he's probably right there neck and neck. I mean, over time, maybe he'll trend into higher B tier, or if he slips up, maybe he'll drop to C. But yeah, I think that's probably inaccurate.
Well, how about Northwestern's Matt Storniolo? Been with the team for 9 years now. Only 3 top 10 finishes in the past decade. That's pretty much all him.
Yeah.
This is a Big Ten school. His highest finish is 57.5. I'm getting some comparisons, I think, to Brandon Mangum at Minnesota.
Okay.
Um, because I think Minnesota's numbers are similar or are a little bit skewed because of J Rob's kind
Oh,
of
influence. Yeah.
influence. But they're Big Ten schools. They always produce tougher wrestlers. But one thing that I think is particularly noteworthy with Northwestern is this year alone, think of the guys that are in the transfer portal wanting
Oh,
to
that's
get
true.
away.
That's
Lucas
true.
Davison, heavyweight, Chris Cannon.
And yeah. That's two of their All Americans that are looking to leave, which you got to wonder what's going on, why they want to leave. Like what? This is two of their superstars, and they're possibly not going to stick around. Um, I'd be leaning, yeah, probably down there.
C, yeah, I'd say C maybe. Because I mean, he's produced some All Americans. I mean, he had a national champion, Ryan Deacon.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, you only made it there 3 times. Your highest finish is sixth. Your average points are only 29 and a half. I mean, it's pretty low. I mean,
It
he's been
is.
there 9 out of those 10 years. That or well, it's 11 years that we're covering because of the one championship that didn't happen. But still, like he's there for almost every single one of those. It he's definitely C, maybe D tier.
Yeah. Well, how about Tom Ryan, Ohio State,
I
17
mean,
years with the Buckeyes. I mean, this is a team that's been able to beat Kale for a
yeah,
championship.
yeah, no, yeah.
That's got
I
to
think
count for something.
that definitely he's one of 3 teams that have won a title in the past decade in the era of Kale and Penn State. He's got the second most points scored in a championship, and I don't even think that that's the year they won it. The 134 and a half was a year that they took second. Like when
Wow.
they won the title, they only scored 102 points. And that was over Iowa. It was the year Penn State really slipped and only scored 67 and a half points. So like I think Tom Ryan is A tier. He's got 80 points in average in the past decade, 9 out of 10 top 10 finish. He's definitely one of the better coaches
So
out
here's the question though, because I think he's ahead of Rob Cole, and I think he's ahead of Brian Smith. Is he ahead? I think you give John Smith the edge. Where do you put him between brands? Is he better than brands or not as good as brands?
Well, Brands has been in the top 5 for the past decade every single time. I
Yeah,
don't
that's tough
think
to beat.
Ohio State can say the same. Ohio State took fourth, 44th, not 44th. I mean, 44 points. They took 13th the year before that. Then they took ninth. They took second, third. I mean, he had a couple years there where he really slipped, and then there's the he won it the year before that was sixth. Like he's not as consistently in the top five. He does get
Right.
there, gets there frequently, gets there more than once. He wins a title, taken second a few times. Like I, he might. I mean, it's hard to say because like a guy that's multiple time runner up compared to a guy that's always in the top five, which one would you say has done a better job? I, it's different.
It is. I think you give Brands the edge just for the consistency because that's
Right.
really
Yeah.
tough to do.
Since this is a coaching aspect, like I would say, yeah, they are consistently in the top five as a coach. Like that's probably more impressive than few years in a row where we had really good years, and then a few years in a row where not quite as good. So yeah, I think that's probably a fair.
And what's tough is, we're ranking them based on the results of their team. The coach is a reflection of the team's performance. So
Well,
when some of these individual athletes uh, don't perform, it reflects poorly on the coach, even though they might be preparing them better, and it's just on the athlete at that point.
I
So
mean, they recruited them, and they're the ones that are preparing them, training them. So I mean, it does fall back onto the coach.
So last but not least, we have Zeke Jones of Arizona State. He's been there for 9 years, and this is a team that's really on the up and up. I think only four top 10 finishes, but I think that's similar to what we're talking about with Populizio, just kind of building the program.
Yeah.
Taking a couple of years. This is a program that I don't think really has much deep history in wrestling in the past.
No, but I mean, they now have Sun Kiss Kids as like all their guys train there now. Um, I think Zeke is really building something there, and I think it's taken some time to take hold, and they're finally seeing some of it with their top four finishes in the most recent years. I know they took seventh this past year, but like uh, I think what he's doing, it's working. Time will tell if he can. I think he's probably B tier, maybe trending towards A. Um,
I'd say high B tier, probably the highest of the B tiers, if not lowest A tier.
I would say probably the highest B tier. I don't think he's quite there because the consistency is not quite. I mean, he's only got 34 points in average per championship. Um, Most recent years, he's seen the most success. So I think maybe in 5 years he might have become a solid A tier coach. But for now, I think put him in the B tier, and that I think that's probably the most accurate.
Well, there you guys have it. There is our tier list for the NCAA Division One wrestling coaches. What do you think? Who do you think are some of the top coaches, and who did we miss on this list? Granted, we were just kind of basing on the top 10 teams over the past decade or so. There are obviously a lot of young and exciting new coaches. Chris Pendleton, right?
Yeah, Chris Pendleton, Oregon State.
Oregon State, and who's at Navy now? Kerry Collette.
Yeah, Colette.
Collette
I'd love to see
brought
when
a
if Navy can
Campbell
maybe.
program to the top 20 out of nowhere, and now he's at Navy and has a chance to do something special there.
Yeah,
So maybe he'll enter the fold.
yeah, that'd
Um,
be interesting. I mean, Air Force had the top 20 finish the first time in forever or ever.
it's
So
funny. I think some of those mid to major schools have coaches with better track records than some of these coaches even. And if given the opportunity, maybe they could be at the helm of one of those top schools like a Rutgers, like a Big Ten or an Oklahoma, schools
Right.
with a little bit more resources than a Campbell.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, some schools are definitely a lot more geared toward that athletics, which makes it easier for a coach. So that is always something to kind of keep in mind.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. And again, we'd love to hear your comments. Drop it down in the comments down below.
Thanks for watching. We are Cactus Wrestling, and we'll see you next time on our next video.